Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, I have yet another guest. This is Jared Henderson of the eponymous BookTube channel or YouTube channel, Jared Henderson. Care to say
Hello.
hi to my imaginary BookTube friends?
Hello, everyone in BookTube world. It's
I
good to be here.
I invited Jared on for a talk about books, and I will leave a link to his channel. Although I was belatedly noticing that he certainly needs no such link from me. For some reason, I had a brain fart and did not realize the size of his channel. So instead of standard sexy booktube influencer call to action to all of you to go and subscribe to his channel, I want to issue a sexy booktube influencer call to action to all of his subscribers not to subscribe to my channel. The last thing I want is for all of you people to come trooping over here like Brown's cows and swell up a subscription feed that's already too big. There are already way too many books on the counter going out. So just a little word of advice right
I
there.
won't even share this on my community tab.
You're a prince.
Yeah.
But this conversation, I mean, we can ramble, but this conversation originally started from the madcap idea of coming up with a list of your 10 favorite authors, 10 favorite
Yes.
books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more I worked on that list, the harder it got.
Yeah. I actually have more thoughts about making a list rather than actually a list right now.
You just recently did on your channel a list of science fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a list
And
of
science
science
fiction.
fiction and
That
I
alone
find,
would take me a month to figure out.
yeah, well, I've been working on that list in the back of my head for a very, very long time. And I find that I can make a theme list science fiction, fantasy, classics, philosophy, even though classics is already too broad, right? But it's the category we use. I can make theme lists a little bit easier, but like my 10 favorite books just in general, I just have no idea where I'm supposed to start, or I have no idea where to end. I always have
When you
this
start to
distinction.
think of a list like that, does part of your brain go right to what the 10 should be?
Part of it, yeah, because you do kind of wonder, um, what are the things people expect, or what are the things that feel like they deserve a nod? I have also been working on a fantasy list because I can do these theme lists for my channel. And I actually don't think The Lord of the Rings would be on my top 10, even though I really love it. And so there's always this kind of wonder if, what am I doing? Right. What have I possibly done?
Well, I
Or,
wasn't wondering that before.
yeah,
I am
yeah.
now.
Am I every once in a while we have to ask ourselves, am I the fool here? Right. Yeah, they're the ones watching me. And I occasionally, if you get big enough and you get big enough views on some of your book lists, you'll find that people accuse you of leaving off popular books to generate controversy. Um,
Yeah.
so so I don't have a Philip K. Dick on my science fiction list, for instance. And my provocative reason for this is that Philip K. Dick had good ideas but didn't write them very well most of the time. Uh, um,
That
and
won't
and
go over
also
well. In most corners of BookTube, that won't go over well.
exactly.
This is the truth, but it won't go over well.
And so many people would say, "Oh, no, Philip K. Dick. Obviously, we can't take you seriously." Or I like Solaris by Stanislaus Lem, but it's not on my top 10. And people go, "Oh, no, Lem. I thought you were like an intellectual kind of reader or something." And I already get those accusations. I think my fantasy list would be even worse.
I
So,
know the feeling. I was on Justly Tarred and Feathered when I made a book to movie list just the other day, and I put the Marky Mark Planet of the Apes on it, and
oh
I've
yeah,
heard
yeah,
the end of it.
yeah,
I've heard the end of it from people saying not only was it a terrible movie, but that the Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes was some sort of work of art.
yeah, yeah. I remember enjoying the Marky Mark version. I actually haven't read the book, so I can't make the comparison there. But I actually enjoyed that movie, at least when I saw it. So I also, by the way, I thought you made a really good point in that video, which is about Ben-Hur being a remake. And that's just like one of those bits of historical trivia that you want to keep in your back pocket when people are complaining about movies these days or something like this. Because I think most people forget that 99% of movies that have ever been made are derivative and terrible, and we just forget about them 10 years after they were released. Uh,
Yes,
and
but
so,
I know the feeling of people looking at a list and saying, "Well, you can't be serious."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, I will be the first person to make that kind of comment for you if you make a fantasy list without Lord of the Rings on it. But I have made lists in the
Yeah.
past. I mean, my affection for giant killer shark novels is well known.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you make a list of favorite books, well, I mean, is when you make a list like that, are you incorporating the element of time of how long you have liked a book? Does that
Not usually. In fact, for my science fiction list, I included a book that I read 2 months ago, and it made it pretty high because I was so blown away by it.
and
Now,
but there
my
is an
my
element there of
there
uncertainty, right? You could
a little bit. There is a worry. Could it possibly move down on the list in the future? Probably. It's just so fresh in my mind currently that that I just kind of had to make the list pretty high up. So I also wrote or said something in that list, just that like, making a list like this is fluid. It's a thing that I would probably want to update quite often. It gives me an opportunity to make more people mad if I need to. And, to recognize that our tastes shift, or sometimes we just forget about a particular book. Maybe someone would raise some other book that I just forgot that I read a while ago, and it just didn't make the list.
yeah, or their individual passions. I mean,
Mhm,
I was going for the entertainment value
mhm,
of the Marky Mark Planet of the Apes. People rightfully pointed out to me that the trilogy with that started off with James Franco
mm,
is
yeah,
much better. It's much
mm,
more intelligently done.
mhm,
I just thought I thought it was a little portentous. That's
yeah.
all. But looking at your like, for instance, the science fiction list, or if you were going to do my top 10 favorite books list, just in general across all
Mhm,
genres,
yeah,
looking at a list like that, wondering about it, automatically makes me want to ask you about your origins as a reader.
okay, yeah.
Are you one of these people? These people I envy so much that was read to in the womb?
I was my mom was a teacher, and she read quite a bit to me, and then I was reading, or I was hearing books constantly. I think the first thing I ever told my parents I wanted to be was a writer, as like a kid with crayons scribbling before I knew how to write, and saying I was
So
writing
there's
books.
never been a time in your life without books.
Yeah, basically. Though I think I became less of a reader actually in college because I became more of a drinker and more more of a partier. Then I made it to grad school and I realized, oh, reading is became work for me in graduate school,
Yeah.
which was tough. And it was only kind of halfway through my PhD program where I was like, you know what, I'm going to make an effort to read for fun again. And I read a couple of books that just reignited my love for reading fiction, especially. And then I just picked up reading voraciously once again.
And what about writing? Since you brought it up,
Yeah.
I
Well,
try not to needle people with it, but
uh, I've been trying to write a book for years, and I have a novel that I've been trying to work on for a very, very long time. That's gone through many different stages of gestation, and that one day may actually make it out
a
into the world.
novel.
Yeah, yeah,
But but okay, that's a little surprising to me considering
yeah.
the drift of your channel. Your
Hmm.
channel is enormously successful for
Pop philosophy, basically.
well,
You can,
I mean, in the time that you have been laboring over your novel, the novel that really surprises me, Ryan Holiday has written 50 books
well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
or 50
Um,
versions of the same book, however you look at it. But
yeah, yeah, yes. He has written. I would say the second description you gave is much more accurate. Um,
surely there's a part of your brain that
mhm,
I mean, I'm not accusing you
yeah,
of being
no,
any kind of a money grubbing automaton, or actually accusing him of being that
yeah,
either. But surely it's a part of your brain that's saying, well, this motivational life advice, or what did you call it, pop philosophy?
yeah, yeah.
Surely, if I made a book out of that, I have a, a good audience to start with. Whereas
Yeah,
with the novel, I wouldn't have anything at all.
yeah, and I'm not totally sure if I would never write something like like a work of philosophy. That's actually what my PhD's in, and like this is my academic background. But I've tried starting that book before just to see if I could write something like that. And the problem is I hate reading those kinds of books. And because I hate reading them, it's very, very hard for me to take myself seriously while I'm
Okay, but
writing them.
what are we talking about here? A
Oh,
philosophy or a,
writing a sort of pop philosophy for a bigger audience and things like this.
okay.
Maybe I could do it one day, and I'm not saying I definitely wouldn't, but it would be really important to me that I did it very well, where people are actually getting exposed to genuinely interesting ideas. And you know, like one of my biggest complaints about Ryan Holiday in particular, for some real drama in this conversation, is that he talks about stoicism, but he actually doesn't talk about stoicism. He talks about like a little bit of something he picked up from Marcus Aurelius and has like kind of filtered through hustle culture and other things like that. But he doesn't actually talk about like the stoic view of like the fatalistic universe, which is actually really integral, I would say, to like how Marcus Aurelius understands the world. And I don't want to give people that like misleading kind of the view of any philosophical thinker that I care about that I would want to introduce people to.
Well, well, I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah.
There are large active parts of what we popularly know as Stoicism that you simply have to drop off the back of the sled the minute you have a kid.
Yeah.
The minute
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
looking into your child's face, and your child is not yet old enough to be able to focus on your face, but they can feel that you're where they belong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look at them and feel this is also where I belong. A large part of Stoicism suddenly snaps into place. Suddenly you look at all of the canonical works of Stoicism and count up the number of children had by any of their authors, and it's zero.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it suddenly makes a lot more sense. But I wasn't talking about that. God forbid that I should even tangentially be seen to encouraging the production of another one of those kinds of books. I review one of those kinds of books pretty much every day. I don't want
Yeah.
any more of them out in the world. No, I was talking
Yeah.
about the you know, the men with beards, the bro tube
Yeah.
motivational stuff that you do on your channel. And the only reason that I'm not, excoriating you in ancient Phoenician is because you do it with a lot of heart. You are obviously not a grifter.
Well, yeah, I'm trying very hard not to be. Yeah. Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
make a book
Yeah.
on right on I don't know what you would even I mean, there'd obviously be a whole chapter on journaling or more than
Yeah.
one chapter. Hell, you
Yeah.
could do a whole book on journaling.
I could
That
probably
would
do
be
a whole
fun.
book. Yeah. Possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
And it
It
wouldn't
possibly
take
could.
you more than the remainder of this year to write.
Yeah. I find it unless it can be a project that I really do care about and that I think could be better than what I've been able to do in short video forms, then it would be really hard for me to commit to a project like that. But because I end up I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I know that you write as well. And I go through fairly intense periods of self-loathing when I'm writing. This was like this when I wrote my dissertation, like this. And if I can't say it's worth it while going through those fairly intense periods of self-loathing, then I'll just never be able to finish the thing.
You're not seriously asking me if I go through periods of self-loathing, are you?
I just don't want to presume.
No. The short answer would be no, I
No.
don't. I figure that I don't want to be unfair, and the universe only has so much Steve loathing in it. Why should I take on any of it for myself
Okay.
when other people should have the full share? But then again, I always smirk when people call me a writer because
Yeah.
I've never written a book.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
write constantly and for
Hmm.
publication constantly, but it
Hmm.
doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
If you worked up, 3 chapters on a Pressy of a book about writing your way to a better sense of purpose
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
all these things that you capitalize as
Writing your way to a meaningful life or something like that. And
if
yeah.
you did 3 chapters on a Pressy of that, you could get agented on your first try, and
Yeah. Possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
that might change your life. I
That's a good point.
wonder if such a
Yeah.
thing how such a thing preys on what you think about. We strayed a bit far from coming up
Yeah.
with a top books list,
That's fine.
but
No, yeah, it would just be if I can do it. If I do it, I would want to be sure that I could really do it well in a way that YouTube is I would call it mostly free in the sense they pay with their attention and their by watching ads. If you monetize like I do, um, and then if I'm going to charge someone $25 for a book, right? I would want it to be something that they couldn't have gotten from just selling their 60 seconds of attention to advertisers
right.
as well. It's just important to me to be fair to the audience, I guess I would say, because I do like really respect my audience, and so I want to, I have the classical sense of love towards them in the sense like I wish the best for them, and I don't know if charging them $25 for the book is the best currently based on what I could produce, which isn't to say I've never thought about it, but
Different thing, right?
yeah,
A book is treasurable, givable,
yeah,
consultable in a way
yeah,
that a video collection is not.
yeah,
And you don't strike me as the type that would simply duplicate your video content. I think you would probably add extra stuff.
It would probably, yeah, it would be rewritten from yeah. Maybe you're convincing me, Steve. Yeah. So maybe you're earning yourself a line in the acknowledgments. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no. I once upon a time felt that kind of selfless giving love for my own subscribers until I realized how much they cost in postage. Now
Oh yeah, yeah,
take a hike.
yeah.
Yeah,
And all
they
of this,
still continue to cost me postage.
and all of this might change for me when my wife's pregnant. We're expecting our first baby in a month. Actually, almost exactly a month is the due date. My view of earning a lot of money and stuff might change very quickly. It's easy to be selfless when you only have your mouth to feed, right? It's easy to say, I'm
Well,
going
it's
to do
also a
this stuff.
different audience. I mean,
Yeah,
I would assume a lot of your what I can't help but refer to as motivational videos.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't help but refer
That's
to
fine.
it.
That's fine. Yeah.
You know already that we fundamentally disagree on whether or not half a dozen English language vocabulary words have any capitalized version.
Hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as meaning with a capital
Hmm.
M, no such
Yeah.
thing as wisdom with a capital W,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially no such thing as truth with a
Yeah.
capital T. And where would you be if you obviously don't think that
No, 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 no. I think all of those things. Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So, but uh, okay, well, I want to sort of you've now terrified me with the prospect that I am actually midwifing the kind of book that I might have to review. It's
Yeah.
bad enough they show up in my inbox. I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
We can come back to it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Sure. If this book comes out though, I'm going to send you a copy personally. So
it always reminds
perhaps
me of
perhaps wrapped in a baby blanket, you know.
this is the thing that I love to do. I love to find books that are lodged inside people, usually sideways, like that one problem log in a flow
Hmm.
down a river,
Yeah.
and get those books out of those people. I absolutely
Yeah.
love doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm in it for the long haul when they need me to be. I will be there every day, every draft, every
Yeah.
paragraph, every rumination. But
You want to be like a BS checker for me if I or would it just all come back covered in red?
we fundamentally
Yeah.
disagree on some of these things, right? I
Yeah.
at least you have the justification, however much of a justification it is. At least you have a justification that's fairly rare among your motivational brethren. You have the beard and the glasses and the soft focus and the radio worthy voice, but you're a Christian,
I am. Yeah.
and most of them profess to be atheists. They aren't atheists. They very much aren't. If you have ever made reference to the logos non-ironically,
Yeah.
you are a deist.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You might not be a Christian, but you're
Mhm.
certainly not the atheist that you parade yourself as,
Yeah.
because that doesn't exist. That isn't well,
Yeah.
from anyway.
I believe that there's like a rational, good structure to the world, right? So, and I have this kind of general worldview for it. So,
And would I be right in saying that that belief in you, maybe not in a lot of your fundamentalist distant American cousins, but would I be right that that belief in you strengthens you to be more purposeful?
I
To
would say, yeah, I would, I
you're
would say
one of the
so.
Christians who would say that it makes you a better person.
Well, I would say that it gives me a way of making sense of the world, which allows me to do better, right? And that's the thing here. What I don't say is actually I don't deny that like atheists or people of other faiths or anything like this can be good people, like which I am actually a product of American fundamentalism. When I grew up, I mean, I grew up in a really fundamentalist
Oh,
church,
did
and
you
then
really?
I
Oh,
left
wow.
that I left that as I left that as a teenager, and then kind of reverted to a different form of Christianity later on in my life. So um and we could talk a little bit about that, but it's if you wanted, but I left that behind. Like I left fundamentalism. So
Now,
um
the timeline here. So while you were in, let's say, while you were in the fundamentalism that you ended up leaving,
mhm,
were you at the same time voraciously devouring books?
I was, yeah. And in fact, my
Really?
parents,
Oh,
so one of
wow.
the one of the interesting things, and this is the reason that I'm very, very thankful to my parents, who are probably both less, well, both actually to different degrees, are much sort of less sympathetic to fundamentalism and stuff than they were when I was a kid, right? So they changed a lot too. But when I was growing up, Harry Potter was the controversy, right? We're gonna burn Harry Potter books because they're full of demons and stuff like this.
Oh,
My
wow.
parents bought me Harry Potter, like and gave it to me because they saw that I loved it. And so they were buying me Greek myths, like books of Greek myths and stuff like this when I was a kid. My parents essentially never said no to a book when I asked for it.
Oh, wow.
I remember when I was like, I must have been maybe 14 or 15. It had to come out a certain, I can't remember the exact year because it was far enough past 9/11 that the 9/11 commission report was like published as a book. Do you remember like when that occurred? I remember asking my dad for that and the Quran at the same day at the bookstore, and he bought them both for me. So, my parents were,
Good
at least
Lord.
when it came to my reading and stuff like this, were very open-minded.
Now, at that age, pardon just a nosy question here, but I
Yeah,
love talking to readers. At
yeah.
that age, did you have a collection of books of your own?
Yeah, I had this really beautiful wooden bookshelf that my uncle, who's a carpenter, had built for me as a kid, and then I just stuffed. It was crammed full. It was like, it's kind of like this now, where it was like there were books and there were books on top of books, and they were like double stacked wherever I could. Yeah,
So your father bought you the Quran and the 9/11 Commission report from a bookstore on the same day. Your uncle built you a beautiful bookcase.
yeah, yeah.
And I guess there's a question mark still hanging over whether or not you should write a book. Of course, you should write a book. Good Lord, I had
Yeah,
no
yeah,
idea about this.
yeah, yeah. So I would say, so my parents, even though I grew up in a very kind of fundamentalist kind of Christianity, they were just even though they were conservatives and would probably call themselves conservatives. Actually, my mom wouldn't, but my dad at least would call himself a conservative. They were very kind of open-minded on a personal level, right? And so, or at least willing to engage things intellectually. So, they just never said no to a book for me, unless if I had tried to ask them to buy some like pornographic magazine at Barnes and or something like this, maybe they would have said no then. But for most things, they just always said yes about books. I think they had this idea that ideas could not be dangerous, and that we should just let our son explore as much as possible.
Wow. And that those kinds of attitudes have not gone away, right? I mean, there was a pastor named Greg Locke who had a book burning, and he told his parishioners, his congregation, bring your Harry Potter books.
Yeah,
Take
yeah,
them away from your kids, even if it makes them cry.
yeah,
Take them
yeah.
away from your kids, and we're going to burn them. And you can show the kids the footage. So that hasn't gone anywhere.
No, no, it still exists. Yeah, absolutely. It's not really a world I'm a part of, right? But it's a world that I know still exists.
So what about now? You've got a baby on the way,
Hmm.
a successful booktube channel
Hmm.
that obviously requires lots of forethought, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
must, I always ask this of YouTubers and booktubers, but you must get up every morning and wonder about your schedule of videos,
I do.
writing
Yeah.
them, scripting
Hmm.
them, in your case, editing them, and
Yeah.
right, all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
That's got to command some mental bandwidth, right?
And in fact, as I mentioned in an email to you, I'm starting a second channel actually, though. But the second channel is specifically never going to be scripted, and very, very likely it's cutting out, some things that check it out, because sometimes I just want to talk to people about books. And I've actually found, I don't do book reviews on my channel, my main channel, because they do poorly, they mess up my metrics, and I'm thinking of it like a business. But I wanted that kind of, I have this phrase that I use in my head that I call pure booktube. I think of like you as like a very pure booktuber, except you're also like a shoulder bag booktuber, or shoulder bag tuber. But
And
I think of these people.
1990 tech.
Yeah, there's a few other people. Brandon's Bookshelf is a guy I actually talk to sometimes. He and I are friends, and he's just like, I'm gonna review a book. I'm just gonna post a bunch of book reviews, and I like that. I actually watch a lot of that content. I don't do book reviews on my channel. And I just thought having a separate channel for that is kind of
Well, how
the
do
ideal
you
way to
do your
go.
channel then? The one you have
Well,
now.
so yeah, I really view myself as someone who can introduce you to ideas, maybe give you some advice on how to get started with certain things. So that's why I do top 10 lists. That's why I do these sort of like journaling videos where I'm also usually talking about a lot of philosophy in the middle of them. The journaling's just the hook there, right? It's the Aristotle that I want you that I want you to care about. Uh, and to say my favorite thing actually is when someone says to me, there are three books actually that people tend to say that they read because of me, and it's Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, and Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Oh, and then probably Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. And at least the first three I feel very, very happy about. The last one I feel good about, but I feel like you have to eventually move past it, and that's kind of the next phase.
But you don't eventually have to move past Aristotle.
Well, you need to move past some of the parts of Aristotle, but there's a lot more gems in there.
Well, I
And
couldn't help but notice that usually on your channel you do succumb to the BroTube habit of referring to Marcus Aurelius as Marcus, like you
yeah.
just left him at the pinochle table just a minute ago.
Yeah,
Oh, Marcus wrote a great book.
yeah.
it's
Well,
it's it's guys with beards.
it's exactly. I do in my newsletter too when I write about philosophy stuff. I eventually start saying Marcus on the second or third reference to him, which I understand. It's like it's the same as saying like we won when you're talking about the Red Sox, or these sorts of weird kinships you feel
But it never
or kind of
happens that you
familiar.
ever find yourself saying Ursula.
No, I never say Ursula. No, no.
Is that
I
is
mean,
kind of weird? I
should
wonder
I
about.
say should I say Antoninus or like
Oh no, that's even worse.
I just don't want to say Marcus Aurelius Antoninus over and over again.
But okay, so I was asking. So you swing your feet out of bed and you're thinking about your channel.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you don't
Yeah.
want to screw up your metrics, and you want to do things that people find useful and whatnot. Uh, so you're thinking about that, and you've got a kid on the way, and you've got other things to do.
Yeah.
What about the non-aligned reading? Just
Oh yeah.
purpose reading, the kinds of things that you just mentioned would be attracting you to another channel, to a second channel.
Yeah.
Where
So
do
a
you
fair
find
amount.
the time to do that?
Yeah. I sleep a little less than I used to. I sleep a little less than I used to. Also, I should say I basically that this is going to make me sound like such a bro tuber in your opinions, but like
We
I
already know that I'm gently.
yeah. But like I don't have a TV. I don't watch any TV. I watch movies very, very sparingly. There's just a few things. I got rid of all video games or anything like this in my life. And that had happened a couple of years ago, but like what I realized was there were certain things that I really, really valued, and being able to read fairly freely and just for pleasure or for discovery was one of those things. And I just have to sort of jealously guard a certain amount of reading time in my life, even with all of these things changing. And so I just cut out all of the things that could easily take up a lot of my time. And I just ruthlessly cut them out at some point. I just literally just my wife was like, she's never been a huge TV person, but I was like, okay, today we're just getting rid of the TV. I'm just gonna give it away. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And within 6 hours, I'd had someone come pick it up. And it was like that for a lot of stuff. We just got rid of a lot of stuff, or I got rid of a lot of things that you would call distractions.
Well, you
But
say,
the idea was,
but it doesn't really sting much, does it? That's the thing
well,
that people don't realize, is that you can get rid of your
yeah.
TV. You're not really going to miss it.
At first I missed it, but it lasted maybe a week. Within a week, I was totally fine. Video games are these things that I kind of always have known I didn't actually love doing, but I can't regulate myself when I play them. So if I play them, I play for hours. And so just saying, okay, cool, I'm just uninstalling everything. If I had a console or something like this, I'm giving it away. I don't even sell it because I want it out as fast as possible. Just take it. And that way I can't take the money and say, well, maybe I'll buy a new one day, right? No, just get rid of it. And I just got rid of those things. And then I realized I have more time. I'm generally happier, and I can read more. And reading is the thing that actually brings me a lot of joy. And writing is actually the first thing to go in my schedule when I get too busy, and that's not good. You really should make more time to write. And so I found that if I want to be a writer and I want to make time for it, I have to cut out other things in my schedule to sort of prioritize that writing time.
And the writing is your newsletter?
A little bit of the newsletter and then a little bit of the
Novel,
book
the
right now.
aforementioned novel.
The novel. Yeah. And apparently this book on journaling to a meaningful life. Yeah.
It could easily afford you the freedom to do other writings.
Yeah, I mean, because I also have a full-time job, right? So I work
Oh,
I work
good
in tech.
Lord. Oh,
Yeah, I work in tech, so that takes a lot of time.
I'll bet. Oh,
Yeah.
well then, I'm clearly going to need to work on you offline. That book would not take you long to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do the basic thing that has the DNA of the pertinent videos.
Yeah.
Then take a month to add stuff that isn't in the videos, so that you don't feel like you're shortchanging people. That's not
You
long
know,
at all. That manuscript could be done by the end of this year.
that's a good point. When I was writing getting ready to write my dissertation, one of the professors I was going to work with pointed out to me, he's like, you've written several papers on the same themes for every seminar that you've ever taken with me. You could turn those into your dissertation. They would need to be much better. They would need to be edited. You would need to expand it. But my thought had always been, when I do the dissertation, it'll be a brand new thing, right? It'll just be, and this has always been my tendency. new project means brand new ideas, leave all the old ones behind or something. Actually getting better at reusing your thoughts is a real skill, a skill that I have not adequately acquired.
Very academic skill.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason I left academia is that I didn't want to recycle the same ideas into 20 academic papers that nobody would read. At least with this stuff, people watch it or read it.
Yes. Right. I want to make sure that's about as far out on the branch of justifying that kind of laziness as we go. I mean,
Yeah.
unless we're going to come full circle and talk about holiday again.
No. I would, if I write this book, it would be the only one of that book. I'd want to be able to open myself up to writing other things as well.
And a nice catchy title. Your audience, your viewers on YouTube would buy it.
Yeah. There's a good chance. Yeah. And then I'd have time to write the novel, right? Then I'd be able to actually take the year and write the novel. Or yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's been my experience that if people are laboring over a novel, it's because it's fighting not to be born. Usually the case.
And good point.
When those books are eventually born, I mean, everybody looks at Confederacy of Dunces, but that's just the one time it worked. Look at all the times it didn't. I mean,
it's good point.
If you're wondering, the rumors that were flying everywhere that J.D. Salinger's house was full to the rafters with manuscripts. Why haven't we seen them? I think there's a real easy.
Yeah.
He probably labored over them for a long time. Something that I guarantee you he did not do with any of the books that still sell millions of copies a year.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But we're running out of time, according to Zoom, and we never actually did get to the topic. We'll have to do this again.
We'll have to, yeah.
But we can finish up with, okay, well, what about getting back to the subject of a top 10 list of your top 10 favorite books?
Mm-hmm.
You have not yet made that video.
I haven't made that video yet. Yeah.
It's science fiction, and you're working on fantasy.
Yeah.
Could you?
I could give you a couple that would be on the list. I just don't know where exactly on the list they would be.
But you think you could make a list of 10 books?
I could. I would probably just be less happy with it. And then I would probably be scribbling it, every other day I'd be going back and say, no, not that one, or something like this.
All right. Well, then for that list, there must be, no matter how open-minded you are, there must be unlodgeable things. There must be undislodgeable things.
Yeah. If we mean all books to include also works of philosophy, which a lot of people don't include when they make these lists, but I can't help it. But
the crap and the non-crap.
Yeah. So my favorite book of all time is Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. And so because I am a guy with a beard on YouTube.
It's very interesting. On your science fiction list, you also had an entry that you cannot read, except in translation.
Oh, yeah.
And here it is again, right?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
There's been a part of me that wants to learn Russian, in part because I love Dostoevsky so much. But it's the idea is stuck with you. I mean, there's something unsettling about loving a book so much and knowing that you've only read it through someone else. There is something very unsettling about this.
That someone else can do an excellent job.
Yeah. My wife, who's a native Mandarin speaker, assures me that the translation of Three Body Problem, which was on the Remembrance of Earth Past trilogy, is very, very good.
It's good, really.
Yeah. But like I asked at one point, the dialogue's very wooden in that book. That's the biggest criticism I have of it. And I was like, is it like that in the novel? She's like, oh yeah, that's how the writer writes. Like the translators they weren't sprucing it up. They were being literal in their translation. But there is something unsettling about that fact. I think perhaps I get away with it because I am more attracted to theme and ideas in books. Though I do value prose a good bit. So there is something strange about it. And in fact, the other book I would say that definitely makes my top 10 list is Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. And I do not read Greek. So,
is there even one possible non-dislodgeable contender in your own language? There's gotta be.
Oh yeah. For that, it would be the book that was number 1 in my science fiction list, which is The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. And that's just there. That is non-dislodgeable. In fact, after making that list, I was like, it's been a while. Let me reread it. And I've been rereading it a little slower than usual. And I've just been loving every second of it. Going back to a book that you love. Yeah.
She has fans on BookTube, but I don't think anyone as vociferous as you. That is
I
wonderful.
might, I might be the biggest one. I think she's just brilliant. I think,
And the dispossessed, when usually people give the palm to the left hand of darkness.
yeah, yeah, which is also very good. But the dispossessed impacted me personally a lot in a lot of ways. It was one of those books actually that reignited my love of reading when I kind of came back to reading. So there is that personal element there, which is totally fine to include in a top 10 list like this, right? No one is claiming as if like I know the top 10 and all these others are suckers or something.
I always
Um,
go for the lathe of heaven.
yeah, I
I,
love
I
that book
always
too.
think
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the dispossessed and the left hand of darkness are just a touch overwritten,
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah,
touch too much
yeah,
there.
yeah. I loved it, and also I I think this was the clearest thing where Ursula K. Le Guin, I would not call her an anarchist. I don't think she ever self-describes as one, but she clearly loves the ideas. And she's just so infatuated with them that they come up over and over in her work. And so to see her playing with ideas that she so clearly loves, that she kind of
Yeah.
wants to see work, but she recognizes maybe that they wouldn't. And
I
I
think
love
the
that about her.
DNA she shares with anarchists is once I believe in an idea, I will go where it leads. I am not
Yeah.
going to adulterate it down the way when it gets inconvenient.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But we're gonna run out of time. I don't want that to
Yeah.
happen. I want to say goodbye and thank
All
you for
right.
being on